Well, my first plan is to lower the sales tax that was increased in the previous session. That sales tax takes money out of the economy that needs to be used for growing our economy. The second plan that I would have is a plan we call the fair tax. And the fair tax is an entirely new taxation system where we eliminate income tax and corporate taxes on all businesses and all individuals in the state of Kansas and around 24 other tax systems that are in place in the state of Kansas, and replace that with a consumption tax. And that consumption tax is like a sales tax, and what we call the fair tax, we replace the tax that you would be paying for people at the lower incomes by implementing what we call a prebate. Now everybody gets the prebate, but it's only paid for the taxes that you would pay up to the poverty line. Now when you have those monies coming back to you, those times you'll have that money to spend instead of taxing on that money. You will be benefiting the state by spending more money and thus creating more jobs. And then when we have all of the monies from the income tax and the corporate tax returned to the citizens, they will have that money to spend and increase our economy, and the businesses will be attracted to Kansas because they won't have to pay corporate taxes, and thus they will have more opportunity to make money in Kansas, and people will come to Kansas because they won't be paying income tax. Well, the state in general is faced with a crisis at this particular time because of the downturn in the economy. Now, most people look at a downturn in the economy as a negative thing, and it hurts us all. But it also provides opportunities for our homes and for the schools and for the state in general. Because in good times, we go out and we spend and spend and spend because we got the money. In downturns, when maybe we lose a job, like I lost my job at Cessna, I had to sit back and set priorities and decide what is good for my household budget. What can I do? What can I not do? The first thing we did was stop going out to eat, for example. And so the state has to make those decisions too. And we have to decide, what are our priorities? Education obviously is one of our priorities in the state, but the school systems themselves have to start setting priorities. We have to sit back and say, first of all, we're going to have to cover the basics of education. We're going to have to cover reading, writing, arithmetic. Then we're going to say, okay, what can we add to that? What next thing can we do that's going to improve our schools and make our students more strong? And then we're going to have to set those priorities so that we either remove people from the workforce, consolidate some of the workforce, and make that a better plan. But the priorities are reset in a downturn. Then when we get to the good times, we can start doing some of those free spending things again. And hopefully we have that very quickly. Well, the first motivation was that I knew that the sales tax in our state, an increase of 1%, which is 1% on what we spend, but it's an 18% increase in the tax. If you take what was the tax before, add 1 cent, that's an 18% increase. That's actually very harmful to our economy, and I said, no. My opponent voted for that, and I can't let that stand. And nobody else was going to be able to run in my district because they're just too afraid that for a Republican to run in what's widely a Democratic district. And I said, you know, I can make that difference. I can be that person to stand up and say we can make these changes, and things like the fair tax that I've talked about before can be implemented if I push them. And I may be the only person who can push them. And the benefits to the poor and the seniors from having a system like the fair tax is so incredible. I knew that I had to get that implemented, and that's one of my priorities. Also, I'd like to be able to look at a system for felons. In the state of Kansas, if you are convicted of a felony and you serve your time and you're off probation, that stays with you for the rest of your life. You're always a felon. And I think that the only way off of it is really for the governor to give you a pardon or an amnesty. And I think there should be some automatic way that a felon can serve, let's say, 7 years of good life living and say, hi, I've done my time, I've done my deal. Give me that opportunity to square it with society and take the felony conviction off of me so I can do things like vote, which they're talking about taking away from felons. I can go own a bar, I can own a gun again, I can go hunting with my son. Okay, I'd like to tell you why I'm running for office. I want to do things for Kansas. I want to improve the life of everyday Kansans. One of those is through the fair tax. The fair tax is a better way of doing taxation. It's a more fair way of doing taxation. Everybody would get a prebate that would be able to pay for the taxes up to the poverty line. Everybody. Now, the more you make, the less that means to you. If you want to know more about the fair tax, please look up fairtax.org or fairtaxkc.org, and that's our local organization for the fair tax. Also, I mentioned that I wanted to help out the plight of a felon who has lived a clean life. And I want to encourage those people to live a clean life. We talk about recidivism, or the repeat crime people, all the time. How can we stop that? Well, I think we should reward people who don't repeat, who live a clean life. And maybe we could call it the Stupid Kid Act, because a lot of times kids do stuff that they don't really mean to be doing. They got caught in the wrong crowd, that they get caught up, and now they're living with a felony conviction the rest of their life. I think we should have a second chance. And I want to address the idea, what does a representative do? A representative passes laws that we all live by. And we do those things so that we all have what we call the civil society. We know that we have to stop at a stoplight because there's some possibility of somebody going through in the green light. Well, that's what laws do for us, and we need to be able to pass those laws. Also, the representative passes the budget, so we know how money is coming in, we know how it's being spent.